Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
You are looking so handsome tonight.
I am literally in the midst of a sickness.
Did you?
So thank you.
Did you also get a haircut?
I did, yeah. In
Look at
fact,
us. We are both shorn and
we are
looking
shorn.
so handsome tonight.
We are, to steal a line from you, stealing a line from Katy Perry, fine, fresh, fierce.
Bikinis on top.
Of course.
It's the summer. Hello. It feels like it, I'll tell you that. Oh my goodness.
I only look this good because I am dewy. And by that, I mean I'm just sweating profusely because I am dying.
I know. I like this shirt I'm wearing, but I might just like do a reveal to this plain white tee because it is hot.
Well, hey,
hot.
Delilah.
Well, hey there, Delilah. And hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or a mini genre. We take a month, we read and watch as much as we can, and we give all that information back to you. And then we tell you what we like and what we don't like.
The reviews are, in fact, mixed. We have some fun. Yeah, we have some fun. We do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Before we start on with this... yes, Gavin, please go ahead. Tell the girls.
Thank you.
Tell the girls.
Also, the Mixed Reviews is a very proud member of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. You can find a bevy of all of their shows at glitterjaw.com.
A bevy? Grab yourself a... And why don't you grab yourself a bevy, okay? Gavin's drinking Pedialyte.
Yep.
and I'm drinking because it's just been that kind of week. And yeah, it's a Tuesday, but still.
Exactly.
Okay, now we can get into some old business before we start on with this episode subject. Should we do the poll first?
Yeah, let's do the poll first.
Okay. Because it's been that kind of week, I put up the poll extremely late in the game, but y'all still voted. And so we're just going to go ahead and say the results. Our last episode, we talked about Steven Spielberg. It was a massive episode. It was our first two-parter. We had the wonderful, fantastic cinema citizen Allegra Frank on with us to talk about this beloved director. We asked you guys to go online and vote for your favorite Steven Spielberg and hear the results. Allegra's pick, Duel, came in at last place with 3%. My pick, West Side Story, came in third place with 14%. AI, Gavin's pick, came in second place with almost 20%. And the runaway winner is Jurassic Park with 63%. We had a couple folks, leave some comments about Raiders of the Lost Ark. Someone says Jurassic Park is my personal favorite, but Schindler's List has got to be his best. Which, okay.
Sure.
And then someone, also mentioned Jaws. So, I mean, he has so many bangers, so many sentimental, emotional things for everyone.
And I believe I even said in the episode, like, the Jurassic Park's the true 5-star review, but everybody's seen Jurassic Park, baby. Like, I know.
Gavin really gagged the girls when he picked AI. I'll tell you that.
And I'm shocked that it got number 2. Mimi, I'm first. I could not believe it.
Well,
number
guess
2?
What, Mimi? I mean, I think maybe AI is like all the cool indie girls picks. The thinking man's pick.
Oh, so you're calling me cool? Oh, so you think I'm very cool?
End meeting. No, but I think there's a lot to love there, and I'm glad we got to discuss Steven Spielberg and his work. I don't know what's happening with us, and we are being very cursed. Richard Dreyfuss just said some crazy fucking things at a Jaws screening. I'm I hope that we are not putting this bad juju into the world, and by our subjects are being cursed by, I don't know, fucking making terrible decisions.
Well, I mean, I did hear that back in, what was it, March, there was a screening of The King and I, and Deborah Carr came back from the dead to tell people the Earth was flat. So,
wow.
So we're just causing chaos out there.
It's really crazy, Deborah. I knew she was a bad seed. I just knew it. But okay. Thank you, Steven Spielberg. May you and your 2 episodes of the Mixed Reviews go in peace. We have some other news. Gavin, talk to us a little bit about May Madness.
So May Madness has come and May Madness has gone. Thank you so much for everybody who participated in May Madness. We did a series of polls both on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X, and Instagram this year, and I had to do a little mathy math and figure out both. We had a great lineup this year. There was Greg Araki, the Wachowskis, Ian McKellen, Kristen Stewart, Rock Hudson, Tessa Thompson. I'm trying to remember everyone without looking at it. Elliot Page and Jodie Foster and Ian McKellen. I think I mentioned Ian McKellen twice.
Yeah.
It came down to Ian McKellen, Jodie Foster. We gave the power to our Patreon subscribers, and by 2 votes, it has gone to Jodie Foster.
Oh my God, the glass closet warrior herself?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You know, who needs to come out in this day and age? Certainly not Jodie.
Honey, I just can't wait to watch Naiad again.
We tease. We know she brings her wife or partner to events. Like, we know
her coming out was being in Naiad. Naiad was her coming out party.
Yes.
Okay. We tease, we jest, we love Jodie, and I can't wait.
That is going to be our June subject. So our very next episode after this one will be Jodie Foster.
Honey, it's time for Pride. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it.
We're not going to talk about it in the 90s.
No. One final thing. Also, speaking of the Patreon, we just released our 2nd episode of Gavin and Louie Go to the Movies. Speaking of queer cinema, we went and saw I Saw the TV Glow. Not as spooky as we thought.
No, but very good.
A different type of horror, or an existential horror.
What did you call me?
You know what you are. But yeah, subscribe to our Patreon and you get access to those episodes.
There's been 2 so far. We did Civil War and I Saw the TV Glow.
Yes. Me and Gavin go to the movies. We talk before, we talk after, break those down. Tons of fun. Super like man on the street vibes, you know. I especially love me and Gavin like just sitting in like the like barren streets of New York, just like talking movies and discoursing while like the streets of New York are around us. It's very chic. It's very like indie. We're cool.
And because it's 2024, nobody questions that we have a tiny silver microphone. We're just passing back and forth.
Yeah, they accept us and they accept that. But okay, all that fun stuff. Check that out if you would like to. Now I think we can get into our episode this week and our subject. Gavin, who are we talking about this week?
This month. We're talking about the beautiful, the smart, the talented, the late great Heath Ledger.
Yes, my goodness. I was just like Googling around like Heath Ledger, like, you know, doing some research. I forgot about all the like really aggressively sexy magazine covers he did when he was like at his peak. His Vanity Fair cover from 2000 is, oh my God, just that, whatever that little piece of like your body is like above your like junk and like your stomach, it just does too much. The power.
Is that the pubic arch? Is that what that is? The mons pubis or whatever?
Sure. That doesn't make it sound good and sexy. The pubis mons.
Tell that to the Latin folks, okay? They thought it was pretty sexy in ancient Rome. Okay.
We were kind of discussing who to cover for this episode, and we're always struggling to find like straight whites that we want to talk about, and straight white men, I should clarify.
Yes.
And out of nowhere, Heath Ledger just kind of like hit my brain, and you were like, yeah, let's do that.
It's sort of perfect because, you know, I think because he died so young and because he was sort of denied a long career, it still is very timely in a way. Like, I even just doing exactly what you were saying of just Googling about, like, I found articles from like a month ago where people are like, yeah, it's still sad to me that the way that he died. So like, I don't know. I think it's a timely and somewhat cautionary tale, even though like it's a totally accidental death according to the coroners and everything. But like, I don't know. He's such a talent, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's such a shame. I'm not trying to shame him over his own death, but like the you know, like, I don't know, what would he have done in this world?
Yeah, I think the shocking thing is that like in the time that we did have with him, there certainly were some clunkers, but like the good was so good. It's kind of shocking how iconic some of his roles became slash are, and there's a reason why people keep going back to them. Like there are at least three films and roles that I think are forever cemented, will never be forgotten in at least this modern age of cinema that we're in. Um, it's just wild, and I think most actors would kill for one,
Yeah.
and he like truly was like this lightning in a bottle talent, obviously so handsome, but like just so charismatic. And everyone, like I was reading these interviews um, with other people he worked with who were just like, he was so kind and he had something that like is just so rare for anyone in Hollywood to have. So yeah, just like an immense talent. Um, Not a lot of work, but from what he, was able to put out while he was still with us, again, I just keep thinking it is shocking, just shocking how successful he was, and how smart he was about his career,
Yeah.
and kind of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gavin, like I just feel like he kind of was a hippie.
Yeah.
He,
He had a lot of energy. That's what everybody would always say about him. You know, his brain was constantly going. I mean, it's one of the reasons that he couldn't sleep. He was an insomniac. He would,
yeah,
he had friends on the other side of the world in Australia where he was from that he would like continue texting all throughout the night because he just never slept.
yeah,
And so like he was just this ball of energy. And I think with that comes like a laissez-faire style attitude to life.
yeah. He was something very special, and I think a lot of people, have said that as much. But also was just like clearly this like he reminds me very much of like the cool straight guy who does theater, like all the girls are obsessed with him, all the gays are obsessed with him. And it just kind of has that savant feeling of like, how is he so good this young and with no training really? He's just kind of like and doing a million things. He talked so much about like not wanting to just be an actor. Um,
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited to dive into the world of Heath. With that being said, why don't we get into a rewind? So Heath Andrew Ledger was born on April 4th, 1979. I don't know how old that would make him today. I'm not going to do the gay math. I know when he died. I know how old he was when he died. But we'll get to that.
Right.
So he was born in Perth, Western Australia. He often called Perth the most isolated city on the planet. I think he definitely had some strong feelings about like that classic got to get out of this town feeling, just wanting to be part of something, wanting to get out there into the world. He was
Dancing
born
in a barn, dancing at the
Yes.
dance, very
Yes.
footloose.
Oh my God. Oh my, imagine a Footloose with Heath. He would have slayed, first of
He would
all.
have slayed. Yeah. Yeah, because he could dance. Yeah.
Yes.
I always forget about A Knight's Tale.
Hmm. Why?
I do think that scene is perfection, though.
I don't know, Perth's a wonderful place to grow up in as a kid. It's a wonderful place to leave as a teenager. And it was just, I had to go. There was a train that was flying past and it was taking me to life and I just had to jump on it and discover what was at the end.
His father is Sally. No, sorry. His mother was Sally, who was a French teacher. His father was Kim, who was a race car driver and like an auto mechanic type dude. He was also like an engineer. Uh, they were not a rich family. He didn't grow up surrounded by like theater or movies or anything like that. His father has talked a lot about how he thought maybe his son would go into, sports, or he also like was really into playing racing go-karts, and maybe he would become, a racer, kind of in his world. And it's just so funny. I think there's a Vanity Fair article or profile where he says like, "LOL, why the fuck would I want to do that? I don't give a shit about any of that." Like, I was, I was never gonna do that. He said he did all that stuff because at school he went to, I think, a boys' school. You had to like either do a sport or like fucking shoot guns. And he was like, what the fuck was I gonna do with guns?
Right.
And part of his personality that everyone says is that he was a huge pacifist, was not like an angry kid at all, but was kind of a punk and didn't do well with authority. Um, his first acting experience, he starred as Peter Pan when he was 10 years old. Around that time, his parents got divorced. He talked, excuse me, very much like, yeah, they divorced and like it was kind of chill. The parents kind of like just were very amicable, moved on with their lives, got remarried, had other kids, and he went back and forth, and it was not that big of a deal. He said both of his parents were very supportive of what he wanted to do. He never felt like they were like disappointed that he wanted to be an actor or not be into sports or any of that, which is so lucky.
Yeah. It's I mean, I don't know. There's something like I don't want to stereotype all Australians, but there's something about the Australians that I seem to know or I've met in my life or like I've read about where they have a very good understanding of the way life works and therefore are pretty chill about what life hands them.
Mhm.
And I know there are a lot of parents who would be like, you want to do what? I mean, my mom, when I told my mom I wanted to go to film school, she was like, you mean you want to be a doctor?
Right.
So like, and I was like, no, I want to go to film school. And she said, oh, honey, doctors don't starve. And so like, yeah, so I totally understand like it. And once again, my mom is a very lovely human being and I love her to death. But that I just think like it's amazing to have these, these parents who are like, yeah, go follow your bliss.
Yeah. I mean, in that same Vanity Fair story, his father talks about how they were looking at like paintings he had done and put on his walls. And he finally was like, okay, son, you got to go to bed. And he tells his dad, like, you better get used to this because this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be an artist. Also, just worth noting, Heath apparently was kind of like a brilliant chess player. Even towards the end of his life, he was trying to become is it grandmaster? Whatever
loved chess. Like,
yes, this was jumping way ahead, but like he was trying to potentially make the Queen's Gambit like as a directorial debut
before he died. Because he had started directing music videos, and that was his first. He'd even gone so far as starting to get a cast together. And so like, and we eventually did get an adaptation of the Queen's Gambit for Netflix as a TV show, and I'm very curious, like, that's one of those great what ifs, like what would if Heath Ledger's Queen's Gambit, but like you said, that's for the end of our episode.
So his older sister Kate, when he was young, like in his teens, she was like starting to like, get into acting as well. And she had an agent. He kind of just like waltzed in there and left with a contract. He was like, me too, bitch. And guess what?
Isn't that the Anna Paquin story too? I vaguely remember us being like, Anna Paquin was like, well, I guess this is my part.
Yeah. Well, like it's hard. He graduates from school early at 16, and him and his best friend Trevor, they basically like ask his parents for gas money and just drive to Sydney. And he said something like he had $5 in his bank account and they were just going to make it happen.
I am buying time just real quick, because Australia is such a small place, that I was just curious how far Perth to Sydney is, and it's 41 hours.
Jesus Christ.
Because it's literally direct opposite sides of the continent.
Yeah.
So just a normal jaunt.
Yeah, just a quick little trip from Perth to Sydney. Casual, almost 2-day trek across the Australian outback.
And I'm sure factoring in like sleeping, probably closer to like 3 to 4 day trek. Like
yeah. So he's 16, he's doing this, they go out there. Kind of pretty immediately, he starts booking gigs. and he said, he never was trained. He says a lot about his technique was that like, I thought about if I knew myself, I could figure out any character.
Because the one thing that's got me to where I'm sitting is my instincts, and I'm impatient. I didn't want to wait 3 years to work. I wanted to just get out there and do it.
And he felt that he could, like literally, he says he could turn up the dials of like what he wanted to do, turn them up and down. I think also it's very important, like pretty much right out the gate when he's starting to get these gigs, he's always looking at like he's going behind the chair with the director to look at the what is it called? Not the dailies, but like
the monitor.
Yeah, the monitor. And and the directors were always like, "Oh, hi," and he was like, "Yes, I belong here. I'm looking at the monitor to see what I'm doing and like how I can change things up."
And it wasn't just the directors; like he would, pepper the DPs with questions. He would find people that were doing jobs, gaffers and whatnot, and like he was very interested in everybody's singular tasks.
Yeah,
and a director has to know what everybody does.
Yeah, so he gets his first like he gets some small TV things like Sydney soap opera type stuff, Clowning Around in 1992.
Yeah, that supposedly he's like a very small child. I cannot confirm. I can't find this movie. Also, it's 3 hours, and I'm not going to watch a 3-hour movie about a clown. Sorry.
No.
I've seen it. Thank you. And and so I found a clip on YouTube, and there's like a clip of like 9-year-old Heath Ledger supposedly in it. And I don't know, babes. I don't know if that's the truth. Ellen, that's not true.
No.
So, I mean, I'm sure he's in it somewhere, but I feel like what exists out there is not the thing that people think it is.
Right. So the first real thing is this TV series called Sweat.
Yeah, much like I'm doing right now.
Uh-huh. That was in 1996. There's a story about how there's 2 roles in this show, kind of like hopeful Olympians. One was like a diver and one was like a gay bicyclist. And his dad was like, I thought for sure he was going to go for the diver. I used to swim, whatever. And Heath is like, no, Dad, like I got to show them I can act. And, doing a role like a gay bicyclist is what's going to make me stand out and get me noticed.
You are a one-off.
I'm not a one-off, Danny. There's lots of us.
Snog, you just picked the wrong girl. Look, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. Her name's Maria.
I'm not interested in girls. Look, the same way girls make you feel, that's how it is for me with guys. If you can't handle that, well...
But how come we never said something before?
Look, I don't want to argue with you, Danny. I'm going to bed.
LOL, he then later was like, it was so horrible. I was so horrible in it. I can't believe, but these jobs are basically, he's making money to try and move to LA. So he does Sweat. And then is it Home and Away?
Yes, Home and Away, which I've also seen clips of, and he's very like pretty boy at school, like a little mysterious, a little dangerous, but like I don't have enough time to binge watch a like what is it, 40-year running soap opera from Australia.
No thanks.
I do like that almost every Australian we've covered, like Chrissy Hems. He was also an Australian soap opera guy.
Yes.
I love when we get these soap opera people. It's so good.
They're putting in the work, baby.
I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was hosted by 2 actors, and one of the actors moved on from soap operas pretty early in his career, but he was talking about like, it was like 90 pages a day.
Yeah.
Like 90 pages a day.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. He does a short-lived show for Fox called Roar.
I remember Roar.
Really?
I watched the fucking pilot. I remember watching the pilot. It's like Viking, sort of mysterious, medieval, like and then doing this episode, I was able to like find an HD rip of Roar, which I think anybody else can as well. It's on YouTube. And I was like, you know what? They didn't know what they had.
Right. Well, he says that at the beginning it was pretty like interesting and actually good, but then in a desperate grab for ratings, it was just like kind of sexy girlies fighting each other in bikinis. And
Yeah,
so,
it definitely came on the heels of the Hercules Xena explosion, and we
Yep.
know like we got Ryan Gosling because of young Hercules, so like it
Mhm.
only makes sense that we would have also gotten Heath Ledger from kind of a knockoff of this. But the funny thing is this was a much higher quality, like this from the initial start, like you said, wasn't going for like the jokes. Unfortunately, it sounds like that's what it became.
Was the ceremony beautiful?
Oh, scratching at the walls. Too many kings in one room.
Oh, I wish we could just stay here forever.
Oh, not here. Across the sea. I'll build us a fort.
Fort.
Yeah, just for you and I. We'll have a beautiful garden. And we'll have cattle. And horses. And hundreds of little children running around.
Hundreds?
No, you don't think you're gonna be my only wife, do you?
Maybe I'll build my own fort and have hundreds of husbands.
Oh, more for your father to hate.
He doesn't hate you.
Yeah, he just hates my family.
he's saving all his coins from these little things here and there. Eventually goes to LA. And he like there's famously this documentary that we'll get to later, called I Am Heath Ledger. People talk about in that Heath kind of had this like there was like this Australian house where all the Aussies would go and live in kind of this communal space, sharing, tips and like, who they knew to get jobs and stuff, while at this house. And he had like this open door policy. It was very kind of hippy dippy. He'd be playing music, very artsy fartsy vibes. Someone hands him the script to 10 Things I Hate About You, which is, was a script by two first-time, screenwriters. So they kind of were like in the same boat of like, I don't know what's going on, LOL. In a very rare kind of, just a rare fashion. Not only does it get optioned and picked up, but like it gets greenlit and like suddenly we're out the gates making this movie. And not only are we making this movie, but like it becomes a huge hit.
I do want to point out, and not to backtrack too far.
Oh my God, I
but
forgot. Yeah,
he does make his feature film debut in 1997's Black Rock, which is an Australian film. He's not in it very much. I did watch it. I was a little like, about it. Let's get back to 10 Things I Hate About You. It's more fun to talk about.
Do you want to do Two Hands before or after?
Well, we could. They come out sort of simultaneously.
Yeah.
Obviously, he did Two Hands before he left Australia,
Right.
But Two Hands is another Australian film that he does. It's a crime drama. It feels very much of the like. It's from 1999 and feels very much like the Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels type era, but with like a tiny bit more mysticism. He's like watched over by his dead brother. It also stars a very young Rose Byrne. I don't know if did you get to see Two Hands?
I did not.
When Rose Byrne popped up, I was like, baby, like,
Yeah.
aw.
There are a couple of jump scares in this watch, and we'll get to some more later. But that's great. We love Rose.
I liked Two Hands. I'll be honest. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but it's a good little crime thriller, and it has like a sort of, it wraps itself up in kind of a very pretty bow at the end of the film, which I thought was like, oh, this is kind of nice. It's well made.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because watching it, I was like, Gregor Jordan, like, why didn't he make more movies? And then I looked at the movies he made and I was like, oh, he did. And there's a reason why we don't do that.
Serenity.
I know this bloke. It's cocky. Bloody Les in the background there.
Oh, don't like him. He's disgusting. He was at my place sitting there trying to crack onto me, scratching his balls.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was glad you rang when you did.
So he was there when I was talking to you.
Yeah, he was just sitting there staring at me.
And what did he do?
Nothing, but I think he was pissed off when he knew I was going out with you.
Oh, shit.
So he kind of has like this small springboard into LA, this communal house thing, this opportunity to do 10 Things I Hate About You. There's a lot of good journalism about this movie. The New York Times has a great like looking back on the anniversary type thing.
I was just going to say, because it just hit its anniversary, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like a couple in 2019 is the 20-year anniversary.
Wow. So this is the 25th anniversary.
Yes,
That's
year
how
we
math works.
And that is math. But they talked to like, a bunch of the stars and the screenwriters, and they're just like in the casting process. I'm pretty sure they mentioned like that they're lesbians, but then as soon as he came in and he left, she was like, one of them was like, I don't like men, but if I was gonna have sex with one man, it would be him. So we need to cast him.
Same, baby. Same.
And honestly,
I saw 10 Things I Hate About You in the movie theaters with a group of friends, including my like first male high school crush that like nothing ever happened between us. But like and he's like married with kids now, whatever, straight people. Ugh. But like but that's what I remember most about the first time seeing 10 Things I Hate About You is that awkwardness in the theater.
Yeah. So he thinks he's bombed the audition. I feel like this fucking story he tells all the time. He thinks he bombs every audition. And he says how he's not good at doing auditions, but
the story of literally every episode we've ever done. I feel like nobody is good. There's like such a particular thing about auditioning. Like it's because it's not real. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Like you've got 5 minutes to go in and be like, because they're not just looking at like the character, they're like judging you. And we could talk about auditioning forever. But yeah, I think it's very funny that he of all people was like, I'm not good at auditioning.
Yeah. So the movie's made on a pretty tight budget and it makes over $60 million for a rom-com. Like it's just insane. It kind of elevates him to this heartthrob teen status. If you don't know, he kind of plays like the mysterious bad boy who has to woo the shrew in this Taming of the Shrew retelling for, teens.
I heard he sold his liver to pay for a new stereo system.
Exactly. I love this movie. I think a lot of millennial types love this movie. I think it's one of the classic rom-coms that has kind of defied time and aged very well. Like there's so many stars in it. The soundtrack's so good.
The soundtrack is so good. I mean, fascinating new thing. Semisonic's fascinating new thing.
Letters to Cleo, baby.
Ugh, wow. And it has aged so well. It truly has. Like that's the thing that I'm impressed with the most too. I also have to say, so as you mentioned, he plays Patrick Verona. Julia Stiles plays Katrina Stratford, also known as Kat. Larissa Oleynik, like love her.
Mm-hmm. Gabrielle Union. David
Krumholtz. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like
yeah.
But I have to put in a word for I don't even know the actor's name who plays him. But Bogey Lowenstein is maybe one of the craziest characters ever committed to film. What is wrong with that character?
There's so many like
Kyle Cease is
There's just so many things. Who is the actress that plays the counselor? I posted this on our Instagram.
Oh,
it's
Allison Janney.
Allison Janney. It is. We are not but 2 minutes into this film, and we are getting laugh out loud, scene-stealing moments from Allison Janney, and you just know that you're in for a special ride. And I think, there were a lot of teen rom-coms in this era. There were a lot of like Shakespearean, reduxes. This one, with a select few others, like stand atop and will forever be, remembered. So, and it's crazy that was his first Hollywood film.
So I'm supposed to buy her some noodles and a book and sit around listening to chicks who can't play their instruments, right?
Have you ever been to Club Skunk? Your favorite band's playing there tomorrow night.
I can't be seeing a Club Skunk, all right?
But she'll be there. She's got tickets. Listen, a sale to your ears for one night. She has a pair of black underwear. If that helps. Couldn't hurt, right?
Because of the success of that film, he gets offered literally every kind of like bad boy, teen, rom-com, heartthrob things. And he is just like, no.
He genuinely considers quitting acting. He's like, I'm going to go back to Australia. I'm going to like try and make it work there instead.
I just wanted to protect my career, I guess. But what I discovered after that was, people in Hollywood can't hear no. They don't like to hear no. And so I had a lot of fun saying no for a year.
So playing hard to get works.
I think so. But, look, the last 5 months of that hard to get period just flipped around. I was like, come on, employ me.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. He was like, I wanted to have the power to say no. I wanted to have the power to tell Hollywood what I was going to do and not the opposite. He also talks about how he's running out of money, is, kind of on the verge of starving. He's like, I had nights where I was like hungry, until, I mean, it's funny. It was just like a year, but in 2000, he gets The Patriot.
Yes.
Which is a huge movie for Columbia. I mean, tons of sets. Fucking Mel Gibson, I guess, is at the peak of his powers, doing whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Who's the director of this movie? Roland Emmerich, right?
It's Roland Emmerich, yeah.
So, like, Roland Emmerich...
It's a John Williams score, which means you hear it from the moment the movie starts till the moment it ends.
It was just so crazy. Like, I watched this movie in high school because, LOL, of course I did. Like,
yeah. And it's so historically accurate.
I know. I watched it again today, and I was like, God, John Williams is on this track. Like, what is going on? This movie, they really were aiming for the 4-quadrant mega romance, action, war, like everything movie.
I'm trying to remember, somebody turned down Mel Gibson's role because they were like, this makes it seem like the Revolutionary War was won as like one man's revenge. Like, and it's like, yeah, the movie really does feel like that. I mean, I know Spike Lee went and saw it with his wife and was like, it was 3 hours worth of lies. Like,
I mean, it's wild. Watching it today, I was like, movies like this love being like, but don't worry, guys. We actually love Black people. Yes. And we are going to be building a better America. And all of our friends who are Black, they are not our slaves. It's like, girls, I get it, but like, Liza Minnelli lies.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they like, at one point, they even leave like where they live.
Yes. Oh my God. And go to like the special island where Black people are free.
They like go hide at the Gullah settlement. Like the Gullah settlement. Guys, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. Also, he ends up like not fucking, but kind of fucking his like sister-in-law, because that's just how it goes, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes you're lonely, racist, Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Yeah. The Patriot, I wasn't initially going to rewatch it, but I had not seen it literally since it came out in theaters. I saw it in Missouri for the first time, in the very first theater I ever was in that had stadium seating. Ooh. And that's what I remember the most about that is the stadium seating. But yeah, it's bad. It's so bad. I guess we should explain. Heath Ledger plays Mel Gibson's son. Mel Gibson is famously a pacifist because of the horrible things he did during the French and Indian War. And
he's a ghost who uses a tomahawk, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Because he got in good with the Indians. White people. And his son, played by Heath Ledger, he also has 7 children.
7 children.
And I guess in the original script it was 6, and when they signed Mel Gibson they changed it to 7 because Mel Gibson had 7 at the time.
Sure.
Yeah. Heath Ledger plays his eldest child, who has decided to go fight for the colonies for freedom. And unfortunately, at some point in the movie, they fall into the bad graces of why can't I find his Jason Isaacs' character, Colonel William Tavington, who is a bloodthirsty Nazi.
He's a redcoat.
Yeah, but literally they're just Nazis. They're not even like the angry British. Like they're just like, burn the churches, like round the people up and burn the churches.
It's almost as if like someone was like, did you know that like people would just like stand and shoot each other in war, but then those tricky little Americans figured out we can just shoot them whenever, and like who needs to be a gentleman in war? And that's just like the entire idea of this movie, that like the genius Americans realized you don't have to be gentlemen in war.
Yeah,
and that's how we won.
That's America for you.
And that's America.
Fuck yeah.
Colonel, I've been a soldier now for 2 years. As a scout, horseman, marksman, scavenger.
That's so?
Yes, sir. I could be of better service with the regulars.
Where'd you learn all that riding, shooting, scavenging?
My father taught me. Teach you any humility?
You tried, it didn't take.
Yeah, I will say the movie is not good. I wrote in my letterbox. It changed high school history class forever. It was a big deal for Heath though, because number one, Mel was at the time the number one Australian Hollywood star. It was also a role that was completely different than what, and he wanted to be a serious actor. He wanted to
Right.
take roles on that would vary, him. Again, he says he bombed this audition. He famously, halfway through the audition, put down the script and said, "I'm sorry, I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting my time."
I just walked out of the second scene that I'd prepared for the directors and the producers. I just stood up halfway through and said, "Look, I'm wasting your time. I really am, and I'm sorry, but I'm packing my bags. I'm going back to Perth," and just walked away. And I don't know, I guess they were curious from that and decided to call me back. And
kind of like said that to Roland Emmerich and Mel. And Roland Emmerich apparently asked Mel Gibson to decide. It was between, allegedly, Heath and Ryan Phillippe.
Yes.
And Mel Gibson was like, "I'm not going to decide, girly. You decide. You're the fucking director." They go with Heath. And, I think Heath is fine in this.
Yeah, it's kind of a thankless role. I mean, he does get that really good action scene with with Jason Isaacs, and totally worth it to watch Rene Auberginois, who is the priest who is helping them out, as he dies, throw his gun to Heath Ledger. So
and Heath Ledger's like, this movie is like wants to be Rambo, but like for America, or for like the fucking Civil War. I don't fucking know.
For the Civil War, Louis? You mean Revolutionary War?
That's what I said.
That's how I remember it.
But yes, okay. It's very fucking long.
Yeah.
I would not rewatch for fun, but there's that. So he's starting to like mix things up, and this is kind of like his kind of imperial period, though. He follows that up with a small role in Monsters Ball in 2001. We talked about Monsters Ball in our Halle Berry episode, obviously. I rewatched this movie this morning just until
until he's out of the film.
Yeah, I will say this movie, even if I didn't finish it, is so gruesome.
I really hate this movie.
The jump scare of fucking P. Diddy, I forgot.
Yeah.
He's there. But I love this character, and I love how he plays this character. He plays Billy Bob Thornton's son. They are both like corrections officers at this prison.
Yeah, specifically death row corrections officers.
Yes, and like clearly this kid is fucked up by his dad, who like there's this generational
right, because he's the third generation.
He's the third generation of this job, and famously his grandfather is ultra racist. Billy Bob Thornton is still racist, but not as racist, I guess. And he's kind of like this soft, chewy, like gooey centered guy who, they go out of their way to show that he's nice to like the sex worker who comes by, and he wants to just kind of talk, and he can't stomach, walking P. Diddy to like the electric chair, literally throwing up.
Right.
And spoiler alert for this ancient movie, he ends up killing himself. And this just the most fucking heartbreaking scene where, I was shocked. I've seen this movie before, but gun to his father's head says, "Do you hate me?" And Billy Bob Thornton says, "Yeah, I hate you." And his final words, he says, "Well, I always loved you." And then he kills himself.
Yeah, he turns the gun to his heart and pulls the trigger.
I hadn't remembered this scene, but like most movies, they'd be like, "Oh, you hate me? Well, I fucking hate you." Like he's just not that guy, and
right.
I think that is part of the superpower of Heath Ledger. Like he has this kind of tough, rugged, masculine facade, but he is so in tune with his inner self, and he's very soft, in fact. We don't have to linger on Monsters Ball, but I just thought that role specifically is really suited to his strengths.
I do want to touch on one thing, though. He was not the original cast for this. It was actually Wes Bentley. And they basically, he committed to the role and then pulls out last minute. And Lionsgate was like, you have 48 hours to replace this guy or else your movie's not getting made. And I'm not sure if it was Mark Forrester, my enemy, or Lee Daniels, who saw the early cuts of The Patriot and what he was doing, but was like, let's offer it to Heath Ledger. But yeah, I guess Wes Bentley like admitted later on that he was like in the throes of like a pretty bad heroin addiction at the time and just couldn't commit to it.
Yeah. Wow.
And honestly, like, no offense to Wes Bentley, like, I don't know if we would have gotten that performance out of it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as much of a showcase as Heath Ledger made it, which it goes back to what you're saying by like, he's such a screen presence without having to do a ton.
Yeah. I mean, even like there's a scene where P. Diddy's character kind of gives him a sheet of paper, like a drawing of him. And there's like this tenderness. These are two men who, you know, have either done bad things or are supposed to be very hard, and they're having this like soft moment. It's kind of shocking, you know, that they're able to emote this softness. But I think that's kind of part of his charisma, that why so many of his fans were like, I'm so attracted to this man who's not afraid to be soft, not afraid to be silly. That same year, he's the lead in A Knight's Tale. A Knight's Tale is kind of like the first, like, he is the star.
Yeah.
This is his movie. His face is selling this movie.
Yeah, his face. That's exactly what I was going to say. The posters are literally his face. And the tagline of the movie is, he will rock you.
Yep. He did talk about how he felt very self-conscious about this movie and the marketing around it.
There's this thing in Australia called the tall poppy syndrome. You know, if one grows too high, you get cut down back to size. And as an Australian, you identify with it. If you do get too successful, it's sort of there's something you feel ugly.
Being a salesman and going out and talking about the movie and selling the film, that was the part of the business that I think he was least comfortable with, really had a hard time with.
He was like, what if I don't rock them? Like, what do you like? And he says, like, I felt like I was a Coke can. They were marketing me like I was a Coke, a product. And he didn't want to be a product. And I'd still silly. I mean,
yeah, it's silly.
I remember at the time being like, whoa, sports movie, but about jousting, crazy. Also, like, modern music, like, this is so weird and kooky.
It's so funny. I read something about how the director, like, really wanted the idea Brian Helgeland had behind putting the modern music is, like, he was like, well, that's how people felt about the music of their time as well. I think that works when it's, like, music in the film that starts off as like non-diegetic, then becomes like, as long as the film is interacting with, like, when the people in the stands are doing We Will Rock You and then it becomes We Will Rock You, but when it's just like a montage set to The Boys Are Back in Town, it's so fucking hokey.
I mean, open the doors for Bridgerton, let's just say that. But yeah, Knight's Tale's fine. The following year he does the remake of The Four Feathers, which medium meh at best. Again, wanting
I guess he like felt a spiritual need to go into the desert, but like,
yeah, I mean, these are just like kind of these millennium movies that kind of come and go, that they're punching above their weight. And, you know, they feel like they have a lot to say, but like really they don't.
Yeah. I could not believe that's Kate Hudson. I was like, Kate Hudson.
I know.
It's your friend's idea of a joke. What is it, Harry?
Feathers of cowardice. Yesterday we were informed that our regiment would be shipping out to the Sudan. That we would be sent to war.
You don't know where they were sending you. You said so yourself. And you did it for me.
Ethne.
Nobody in their right minds could call you a coward. Especially not your friends.
The Order, which, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, no, he was in that movie. I saw him a lot.
The Order, again, Brian Helgeland, I don't know what she was on, but she wrote the most fanfic ass movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I believe my Letterboxd review was worst episode of Angel ever.
Yeah, yep. He plays like a spooky priest who, I don't know.
He's tasked with killing a sin eater, and he's teamed up with his ex, who is also somebody who he exorcised a demon out of, and when he did that, she tried to kill him. And
Also,
there's like this really embarrassing scene between them where he's like, don't try and kill me again.
It's you and me. You and me till the wheels fall off.
Promise you won't try to kill me.
Cross my heart.
Yeah, also, this is the same woman who was in A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, Shannon Sosaman.
Famous DJ, Shannon Sosaman.
Sidebar, her... I don't want to get too into this because like it's a friend that listens to the podcast. Shout out. My friend's sister got married by Shannon Sosaman's kid recently.
Casual.
Yeah.
The following, I mean, so we're still in the early aughts. Ned Kelly comes out.
Yes.
He goes home to play Australia's perhaps most famous icon of history. I quite liked Ned Kelly, but maybe it's just because I was like, who is that? I literally was like, Google. I was like, oh my God, Ned Kelly is crazy. He was real.
There are much better films about Ned Kelly. I will say this. I don't hate Ned Kelly. I think Heath has a lot of charisma in it. And I think like there's some really fun scenes. That scene where they like rob the house and that woman's like all turned on. Right? Like,
oh my God.
So much fun.
So good.
Personal fun thing. Years ago, Dan was interviewing John Michael McDonough, who wrote the script, who is the brother of Martin McDonough, who directed Banshees of Inisherin and is a very famous playwright. And in the interview, because he was not interviewing him about this movie, he's like, oh, I also saw your Ned Kelly movie. And he said, I'm so sorry. So you know, there are other people who don't like that movie, including the man who wrote it.
If you want to like learn a little bit about the wild, wild west of Australia and have a little fun, I recommend Ned Kelly. It's a very inoffensive kind of historical look at this very famous Australian icon. In 2005, Casanova comes out.
He really is just playing icons.
Yeah, it's just this time he was like, I'm gonna choose the most kooky, random, weirdo fucking movies because, like, honestly, from The Four Feathers to like I would say the next two films until he gets Brokeback Mountain, it's just kind of like he is choosing like the weirdest, off the beaten path roles for himself.
And 2005 really is his busiest year because, you know, as you just mentioned Casanova, but there's also Brokeback Mountain, which you just mentioned, Brothers Grimm and Lords of Dogtown. Like he did 4 movies, and I mean, I'm sure he shot them all in 2004, the beginning of 2005. That's still a large amount of work to be putting out when you're just one person.
The only thing I'll ask about Casanova is like, he changes his wig and people can't recognize him. Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's the Superman thing. That's
okay.
like, well, I guess like, yeah, no, I guess there are people that don't recognize him because I will say every time he changes his wig, what's her face? The love interest in it, Sienna Miller.
Yes.
She recognizes him, but he just pretends that he was pretending to be a different person.
But there are certainly moments where like he does a mask scenario where the people can't see him, but then other times he's like maskless. I'm like, I don't understand how much we're supposed to be like realizing that people don't or do recognize him.
I just also think it's really funny that it's a Lassie Hallstrom movie who, like, if you thought there was going to be sex, like a sexy scene in a Lassie Hallstrom movie, like, Like,
I wouldn't even call it sexy. It's
well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's
yeah.
I don't think Casanova is worth anyone's time. Though I do like
really? Because also go on.
I do like a young Charlie Cox, though. I'll say that.
Okay, Charlie Cox, I think does a good job with it. I think what's her face that went on to like a Game of Thrones and
yes, yes.
She's really good in her very brief role. She's like hamming it up. But to me, the piece de resistance is Jeremy Irons, who was like born and bred to deliver the worst lines ever and make them sound so fucking funny and interesting. Like he is camp. Jeremy Irons is camp.
Signor Paprizio, if you would help me put an end to this vile fornicator's career for good and all, believe me, the church would be very grateful.
How grateful?
The lard concession of the Vatican, which is a lot of lard.
It's quite an attractive offer.
So, we have a deal. You will help deliver Casanova unto me?
As sure as my name is Paprizio.
Yeah, the movie
the movie's bad. Okay, I don't want to go too hard.
There are some camp sensibilities to it, but like, I also think the movie is trying to be serious. I don't understand the movie. It's fine. Moving on.
It's a hot air balloon. How could it be serious?
Oh my god, the digital for technology. I'm gonna move on, but yeah, a lot of problems with that movie that are just like weird and like not worth mentioning. The Brothers Grimm with Matt Damon. Yikes. Is what I'll say about that. Lords of Dogtown, another biopic, directed by Catherine Hardwicke of Twilight fame. Hello.
Can I do one real quick fact about Brothers Grimm, and then we don't really have to talk about it?
Yeah.
He was cast in Matt Damon's role, and Matt Damon was cast as they like begged to switch because they were better suited, and I think that was correct. Okay, Lords of Dogtown.
Lords of Dogtown, which is a biopic with a true story of like the rise of skateboarding culture, from like these surf shops,
right?
In Venice and Santa Monica. Catherine Hardwicke wasn't sure if he was right for the role because she only knew him about like teen heartthrob stuff, and apparently Heath went to her and like begged for an audition. He was so committed, impressed her. She said, "You got it." He like was wearing fucking fake teeth and had
he got his own fake teeth.
Very goofy accent.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. This isn't a library, so it's $10 to browse. You got $10?
Didn't bring any money today.
Yeah, why'd you come into my store then, asshole?
I don't think the fake teeth work for me. They're a little bit too silly Billy.
Yeah. I have a tendency to agree with you about the teeth because they are distracting too.
Yes.
And I think that's maybe the worst bit about them.
Yeah.
But I've now seen interviews with the real Skip Engblom, and he sounds exactly like he got the voice.
Yeah.
And I think the teeth are sadly kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I guess I kind of have to give that one to him.
Right.
It's like he was right, but
yeah, even though it's like so preposterous, it's like, well, he was right. I will. That's a good point to bring up though. Like, I think Heath Ledger, his voice is a very powerful tool, and we'll see. Coming. We've already seen, and we'll continue to see. He is able to transmute his voice into so many different accents and affectations to very, very successful. Levels. In Monsters Ball, he has like a southern drawl. In this movie, this guy sounds crazy. It's like this California accent, but like very kind of drawn out as well. He's doing British accents, he's doing American accents in The Patriot. Like, and again, this is a guy with no formal training. So worth noting. I think Lords of Dogtown, unfortunately, is kind of like too big for its britches, and
this is my second time seeing this movie, and I'm sort of left with the same thought that I had the first time, which is like, if it wasn't these guys behind the making of their own story,
Yeah.
would we like, do I need to care about these people? And I know that sounds terrible, but I was like,
Well,
okay.
I think if, because a lot of these guys were at the time / still are around,
Yeah.
and you can tell that there's a lot of heart in here because like Tony Hawk is, does a little cameo, and like these are the guys who started skateboarding culture, and like they do have an interesting story and how that all shook out. But like my kind of thought was like a lot of them were Latinos,
Right.
and we have Emil fucking Hirsch, like
Right.
and
well, I mean, Catherine Hardwicke, there's a making of this movie that you can find on YouTube. It's like 30 minutes long, so doesn't take up too much of your time. Catherine Hardwicke had to even be like, hey, like, this is great and all, but like, what did the girls around them think about? Like, we're not just going to cast women in the movie and not have them speak. Like,
right. I think there's a lot here where she probably did not have control over this film. And I think it's trying very hard to be a lovely love letter to this community, but ultimately I think it does fall short. I bring up Emil Hirsch though, because almost immediately after, like, I think it's 2 days after this film wraps, Heath is set to go to make Brokeback Mountain. The casting announcement has already been made, and on set, people are ribbing on him for doing the gay cowboy movie. And Emil Hirsch in this documentary says, finally one day, like Heath really said, shut the fuck up, or I'll like, lose it. And people kind of were like, oh, okay. Which kind of just like also like paints a picture of like where we were in Hollywood and how people were reacting to him taking this role.
And also like, Emil Hirsch, like
fucking
he assaulted a woman at Sundance Film Festival in 2015. So like also not great, not great to begin with. Yeah.
But at his final performance in 2005 is Brokeback Mountain. We've talked about Brokeback Mountain in our Anne Hathaway episode, I believe, in our queer cinema episode.
And in our Ang Lee episode.
That's right. Ang Lee has said that he gave Heath this movie because of his performance in Monsters Ball.
Yeah.
Which I 100% believe and I understand, because like his performance or his character in Monsters Ball, Ennis Del Mar, the cowboy he plays, is a facade of steel and has the insides, not soft, but just like gurgling, ever changing, shifting. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Brokeback Mountain is about two cowboys in Wyoming who are tending a herd of sheep. They realize they have feelings for each other. Obviously, it is very complicated. They are both married. They have this very long affair. Finally, Ennis, which is Heath's character, decides that he's not going to do this and kind of gives up the love of his life. And it's very sad, very beautiful.
I do want to mention, as you mentioned about accents, Heath, we've talked about other Australians on this show before, Chris Hemsworth, Nicole Kidman, Olivia Newton-John. I'm putting that in quotes because she was born in England. And none of them are very good at other accents. I mean, Nicole Kidman does a lot of work with other accents. It's always a little shaky quaky. Chris Hemsworth, it's like very shaky quaky for the most part. Heath was so good at them, as you were saying, and this movie requires a very specific and he like went and learned like a specific like Wyoming, Texas accent, which is like, those are two states that are not near each other.
Yeah.
And like he had to learn both of those very specific accents in order to play this role, and he nails it. Like he's so good at it.
People even before this, people were comparing him to, Marlon Brando, comparing him to Errol Flynn for his like kind of swashbuckliness. He said, his actual idol was always Gene Kelly. He thought that there was just so much charisma there. I think in this role, I mean, he says that he played every scene as if he was like a clenched fist personified. Everything was just so clenched and closed off and tight.
I think about that 4th of July scene all the time, where he just stands up and the fireworks going off behind him, and he's gonna get into a fight, and it's just the anger is just boiling and pulsing out of him, it's a good movie.
It's one of the movies that, like, even though it's sad, it's always so satisfying to come back to. Just because it's such a great showcase for not one great performance, not two great performances, but like across the board, stellar banging performances, and beautiful like picture work by Ang Lee. It's just kind of a revelation.
It's incredible just to what extent this film has changed my life.
And Jake Gyllenhaal took the role, obviously because he liked the script, but also because he wanted to work with Heath Ledger because they were friends. And there are nightmare versions of this movie that never happened. There was the Gus Van Sant version, which was planned, which was supposed to star Matt Damon and Joaquin Phoenix.
Yikes. No, my God.
When Matt Damon turned the role down because he had just done, as he told Gus Van Sant, I just did a gay movie, which was Talented Miss Ripley, and I just did a Western, which is All the Pretty Horses. I can't do a gay Western. They sent the script to Mark Wahlberg, who turned the movie down because the script was, quote, creepy. By the way, we will never do a Mark Wahlberg episode.
Imagine Mark Wahlberg calling anyone creepy, because this guy is what, the picture of like non-creepiness or whatever. Fuck off.
As I was saying, we will never do a Mark Wahlberg episode because on this show we talk about entertainers, and that's something Mark Wahlberg has never done. So it's so funny because there are so many ways this movie could fail, and then especially the way when it comes out, like its place in history. And look, I get it, like it, it's maybe not the best queer representation. These are two straight actors who are playing gay characters, and it's done in a way that, like, really, it's like very kill your gays type of movie, like, and it's done in a way to be like, see straight people, like gay people can love each other as well. That being said, it works. It fucking works. Like,
yeah, it works. All the pieces came together, and it became, not only was it, some movies come out and it's like, oh, critical fave awards, blah blah blah. It is rare for those movies also to become like a cultural moment. This was around, was it 2005 when gay marriage became legal?
No, it's 15. Yeah, it's way later.
10 years prior, but like on the path. I remember being in high school when this movie came out, and the
You thought gay marriage happened when you were in high school?
Okay, I like slipped, Gavin. I'm drinking. I remember in high school, our like school counselor, she was like, for some reason, telling us about how she saw this movie and she really loved it. And she was like, people say it's about gay cowboys, but it's not. It's about love. And I was like, okay, an ally.
But that's what I mean by like that. Yeah, it feels very much like the like, no, it's not, I've said many times on this show, I hate that.
Yes.
Like it's like you need to do the math.
Right.
Like you get to be the one who's uncomfortable. I get to be the one who's comfortable finally. But once again, it's still very successful at what it does. So
I don't want any trouble from you. You need to shut your slop bucket mouth. You hear me?
You want to listen to your old lady then?
Is that right?
Yeah. Move somewhere else.
What about it? You want to lose about half your fucking teeth? Huh?
Not tonight, bud. I'd sure rather not.
It gets a bunch of awards recognition. Heath gets his first Oscar nomination for his performance. It's just, if the other movies before were like his star making turns, this is what makes him like an A-lister. This is what catapults him from kind of like heartthrob to actual serious actor, someone to watch out for. I After sorry, go ahead.
So he famously loses the Oscar to Philip Seymour Hoffman for Capote. Can I just read real quick from an Annie Proulx article? Annie Proulx is the woman who wrote the original short story Brokeback Mountain is based off of. She was very incensed over the way that Brokeback Mountain was treated at the Oscars. She wrote an article for The Guardian called Blood on the Red Carpet. And specifically about Heath Ledger, she wrote, "The prize, as expected, went to Philip Seymour Hoffman for his brilliant portrayal of Capote, but in the months preceding the awards thing, there have been little discussion of acting styles and various approaches to character development by this year's nominees. Hollywood loves mimicry, the conversion of a film actor into the spitting image of a once living celeb. But which takes more skill? Acting a person who strolled the boulevard a few decades ago and who left behind tapes, film, photographs, voice recording, and friends with strong memories? Or the construction of a character from imagination and a few cold words on the page? I don't know. The subject never comes up."
That is such a fucking deep read to like Hollywood. Like, oh, was it hard to be Capote?
Exactly. And like, listen, Philip Seymour Hoffman is very good in Capote. I don't love the movie Capote, but I do think he's very good in it. It does beg the question, which is harder, building something from nothing or building something that already has, you know, the scattered bricks around that you just need to bring together.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I'm not an actor. I'm just here to ask questions. Like,
I think, like, you know, Capote was easier to vote for. Period.
Yeah,
it was such Oscar bait, like, you know, and even though I think Brokeback Mountain deserved more, like, I don't think it was made for awards. Like, this is a movie made for art, and you know, and I'm glad people took notice of it. But like this. Do people remember Capote? I mean,
I know. Yeah.
And maybe some do. And Philip Seymour Hoffman was great, but like Brokeback Mountain will forever stand as like this piece of queer art that will just transcend, you know? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think 10 Things I Hate About You and Brokeback Mountain are two already in his short career, just like lightning in a bottle moments. After Brokeback Mountain, he goes back to Australia. That was a really bad accent on my work. But he makes the 2006 film Candy, which is an adaptation of a novel. It's his drug addict movie, which I feel like every actor has to go do one of those. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it's a perfectly fine movie. I do think it's really wild that the movie is mainly from his perspective. When it's named after Abby Cornish's character, I was like, we're really not getting a lot of like her internal what's going on. I think both him and her are very good in it. I think Jeffrey Rush is fine in it. Like, he's playing it up. But yeah, it's a mostly good movie. Like, I don't have anything negative really to say about it. But I didn't love it either.
Yeah. After that, he does I'm Not There. He plays one of the actors embodying Bob Dylan.
Yeah,
I didn't rewatch this.
Actors. I did, because A, I love it. So like, it's not a hard rewatch for me, but B, so his character specifically is the furthest kind of removed from the Bob Dylan thing, because he is playing an actor who played Christian Bale's version of Bob Dylan on the big screen in a movie about his version of Bob Dylan. And at the same time is going through a divorce with Charlotte Gainsborough. And I think there was the producers said that like his is maybe the most authentic Bob Dylan in the movie because he's the most removed. And so he was like not doing an impersonation, and but also like he has one of the most human stories in the film because he's like really going through a lot in it. And it's interesting because his specific story is the dissolution of his marriage through the eyes also of the Vietnam War, which is kind of abstract, but also like really brilliant. A war that nobody could win, essentially, a marriage that wasn't going to end well. I don't know. I really like his performance in the movie, but I also am such a mark for that movie in general.
You write down the nastiest thing you can think of, and I'll write down the nastiest thing I can think of, and
What?
We compare.
What does that prove?
Then just do it.
No.
Claire, sit down.
No. No. I
honey,
want to
play
know.
the game, play the game.
I want to know what this thing is that women cannot experience or
Cut the fucking snaps!
Or write about, or talk about, or what put on paper. What is this place?
Wow.
Do you own this place? Did you invent it?
No, honey, I don't. Claire, come on, you're missing the point completely. I worship women. Everybody should have one.
Yeah, fine.
Claire.
And then, we're getting to the end of his career in life. His penultimate role, which I think is his third lightning strike, is The Dark Knight. He plays the Joker famously, and turns in another iconic performance for a character that has had already some iconic performances that people know very well and regard in such high praise. He is able to take the role and completely make it his own, and I think to this day and forevermore, people will think of him as one of the most signature Jokers of the character's existence.
I don't want there to be any hard feelings between us, Harvey. When you and Rachel were being abducted, I was sitting in Gordon's cage. I didn't rig those charges.
Your man, your plan.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan?
His take on the Joker, I mean, it's in the script. Like, I don't want to give him full credit for like the script is really like, this Joker is chaos personified, essentially. But he brings such a unexpected flair to it, a unpredictable nature. Like he is like the imp, essentially, and it's not like Jack Nicholson's Joker, who's like a calculated clown who is also this murderer, and it's not like the Cesar Romero Joker, who's just very silly and bubbly, or like even the like Mark Hamill Batman the Animated Series Joker, who's like obnoxious with a horrifying edge. This is a Joker that just you can't pin down. And I love the fact that the licking of the lips actually came from the fact that like his makeup was constantly coming off. It was coming loose from his lips because of the glue was coming off. So he's just constantly patting his lips back down, which I think is so much fun. I mean, it would be impossible to do a Heath Ledger episode and not talk about the Joker. I mean, it wins him, Academy Award, even though he had passed away. Do I think he would have gotten that posthumous award? Well, if he had been alive, obviously it wouldn't have been posthumous. But do I think he would have been nominated had he not died? Probably not. In all honesty,
it's interesting because the movie, people were up in arms that the movie did not get nominated for Best Picture. This is the reason why now we have 10 nominees for Best Picture instead of 5. And this kind of maybe was a way for the Academy to like award/honor the movie without doing that. Who can never be sure. I think the performance is stellar. I think, Christopher Nolan was like really on a tear with these movies. Like they kind of set him up for what he is now, and he can do whatever he wants in these crazy, kooky movies and really kind of outrageous. Kind of the thinking man's blockbuster, I think is kind of his vibe now, right? And specifically to he's talked about how this was the most fun he'd ever had making a movie. He wasn't, that he was laughing, having fun on set, skateboarding around. The Joker persona and character was not weighing on him. He was just like having a great time disappearing into this character.
I'd already seen this world he'd created in Batman Begins, and so I knew there was an opportunity for a new version of the Joker, and that excited me, and I also knew instantly what to do. I locked myself away for 6 weeks in a room, and I kind of came up with this creep. walk around like a madman in finding posture, finding stance. Finding his voice is very important, because when you find the voice, you find the breath within the voice. It was the most fun I've had with a character, hands down. Creatively, it was just, it was too good to be true.
Which is so lovely to hear, because
I know.
I remember when he died and everybody was like, oh, it's the curse of the Joker, and oh, he went too far into the character. I mean, even there was that like quick clip of Jack Nicholson being glib where somebody like saw him at a restaurant, like some, TMZ type reporter, and shoved a microphone in his face and was like, Heath Ledger's dead. And Jack Nicholson was like, well, I told him not to play that role. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's
yeah.
Parallel this to like fucking Jared Leto's infamous like lived as the Joker, was being an asshole to everyone on
sending
set.
people used fucking condoms and
dead rats. Like that was not Heath's bag at all. He knew what this character was able to come in and out of it, was having a great time filming it, and you can tell, you can just tell the movie is a smash success. I think this performance, along with those other two I mentioned, will just like kind of live on forever, which is crazy. He was 28 years old when this movie comes out, and by the time he passed away, the final work he doesn't get to finish was The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. He had completed about half of the movie when he passed. Other actors kind of filled in to finish that movie for him,
along with a physical double and a voice double. And I only bring that up because I feel like that's something, it's part of the story that people have a tendency to forget about, even though Terry Gilliam was very like, he credited the doubles in the credits because he wasn't gonna not do that. But like I think they deserve, like, that's a really hard thing to come in and double somebody who has just passed away,
Yeah. Okay, so first I want to talk about, like, as we wrap up the rewind, Heath had directorial ambitions. He directed a couple of music videos. He was friends with a lot of musicians. A lot of people talked about how he was always playing music, was always listening to music. He played a bunch of instruments. That was on his mind. And we mentioned earlier, he wanted to adapt The Queen's Gambit. And that was like on track to be the situation.
I know our film and the way it was made was very close to his own artistic sensibilities and ambitions. In fact, he had just started circulating a feature script that he was planning to direct, an adaptation of The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. And the first people he sent it to were Ed Lachman to shoot and Laura Rosenthal to cast. I have no doubt he would have made an astounding director.
Personal life / like his death, we talked about how he had a lot of energy. He wasn't sleeping well. He was taking sleeping medications to help him sleep. People were kind of like commenting that like he looks tired. Like he looks like, kind of run ragged. He was working all the time.
It's overwhelming, I really want to represent each film the best I can, and it takes a lot of energy and enthusiasm and stamina to kind of to do it properly. And I can tell you, I am exhausted to the bone.
He was texting people all the time. He would sometimes just show up at people's houses, to kind of like, let's work on this, let's work on that. And again, because he would grab his friends, and like he started a record label, I believe.
Yeah.
And was like, not just like, oh, I'm starting a record label, but like would be on tracks with some of his artists, was like personally, developing these artists because he believed in them and their artistry. He talked as early as like A Knight's Tale saying, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. He knew he did not want to be an actor for long. So he had a lot going on. I bring the some of that stuff up just to say where he was at when he passed away. The official death was an accidental overdose. He was in New York. They found him in his apartment, and he was already gone. the sleeping pills, and that's what I think a lot of people will say was like David Krumholtz has said this in a pretty good interview where he was like, Heath was trying to get help. He was trying to live healthy. He was not a depressed, sad guy. That was
Right.
not the case at all. I think probably what was going on here, and I'm absolutely speculating, is like he needed mental health help, you know? And I think this was like kind of the beginning of this epidemic of what has happened for a lot of people, you know? Continuing today, we have this opioid crisis where through a lot of different things coming together where the access to these drugs, the pushing of opioids, and
there's a lot of stigma attached to addiction, even when it is something like that. Even when it, obviously society has a lot of stigma for any sort of person who is taking drugs, but even prescription drug abuse, there's such judgment levied on the victims of things like that, and it's so ridiculous and heartbreaking.
Yeah, he was married to Michelle Williams, who he met in Brokeback Mountain. They have a daughter together. I think, just to wrap that up, Philip Seymour Hoffman later would leave us in the same, way.
That was heroin, so it is different. But
right. But there's, I think there's a lot of people who struggle with substance abuse, with of all sorts and all kinds, and I think we are barely now kind of picking our whole self up out of like, there is no shame in asking for help, and we need to do better to like have services to help people who have some substance abuses and need mental health services. So there's that. What else? So I mentioned Michelle.
They met on the set of Brokeback Mountain. They had a daughter together. They had split before he had passed away. And that's one of the things that I think I kind of always forget, because I think people want to, which is not to say, once again, it seemed like they were on good terms. Mm-hmm. And so the death was particularly hard on Michelle Williams, but I do think people want the love story and want the romance. And so I think it's like a situation where it's very easy to make people forget that they were no longer together when he passed away.
Yeah. I think we should mention really quickly that documentary, I Am Heath Ledger. It is the family-sanctioned documentary of Heath Ledger's life. I will say, I find it kind of troubling / not worth your time. I think not only just because like clearly it's a very sunshine and rosy picture of his life, I also think somehow it is both invasive and also like not telling of anything at the same time. There's a bunch of like, he apparently recorded a lot of his own life and friends and family. I don't know that any of that is revealing, and they play a lot of that, and I'm like, I don't know if I should be watching this, but also it's very kind of boring.
There's two things I will say about it. One, I hope it was cathartic for those who participated in it. I hope they do get some sort of closure by doing that. And two, there's a lot of Heath Ledger documentaries out there, and they're all very tabloidy, and this one was the closest one to something of substance. So like, if you did have to watch one, I would recommend watching this, but like, don't run. I mean, it's, as Louis said, it's not very illuminating. I'll probably steal some archival interview clips from it, because it does have some like tiny good bites from Heath Ledger himself, but yeah, for the most part, your read on it's pretty correct.
Yeah, I just don't think I think you're better off finding some of these great interviews he did when he was around. The Vanity Fair article is very good. There's a Rolling Stone article that's very good. So there's that. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our rewind of Mr. Heath Ledger. So why don't, Gavin, we get into our picks? Let's get the bad out of the way first, and let's do our 1-star reviews.
Oh, we're gonna exercise some demons.
We're gonna exercise some demons, Gavin. So how about, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, my 1-star review is clearly The Order, which is not a film. As we mentioned before, Heath Ledger plays a priest who works for the Vatican. He's been tasked with killing a sin eater, and he's becoming disillusioned with the church itself. And essentially, he teams up with his friends, played by Mark Addy and Shannon Sosaman, who were also co-stars in A Knight's Tale. And they go to Rome to hunt down the Sin Eater. But this Sin Eater, he tricks Heath because he's got a silver tongue. And he goes and he kills Shannon Sosaman and gets Heath Ledger to do the sin eating, to take his place. And then it turns out, now that Heath Ledger's the sin eater, he's not going to eat the bad sins.
Yeah.
He's only going to eat the sins of those who deserve it. And then this movie ends like a fucking TV pilot.
Even you explaining that is so like, what? What?
I guess in the original screenings, they did test screenings. They had to change all the CG in the movie because the sin looked too much like calamari.
Oh my God.
And the CG is not much better.
No.
I will say it still looks like wibbly wobbly. Like,
it's just wild because like for an alleged action thriller, like in the vein of, I would say this movie wants to be Queen of the Damned type genre-y.
That's probably correct.
But and it has all the like new metal classic things of the early aughts that you'd find. Also, he's a special type of priest. He's a Carolinian.
Yes, which I believe is made up.
Which I don't know what the fuck that means, honestly. It's like there's only 2 of them left. They believe in something crazy. I don't know.
It means he's from the Carolinas.
Yes, dear mom. Also, he's like, ugh, whatever. I want to fuck this girl. And so he ends up having sex with this girly. They do explain it for some reason. Not a good explanation, I'll tell you that. It seems like this, what's the name of the director? He also did A Knight's Tale.
Brian Helgeland.
Yeah, he kind of was like, what if priests were superheroes who had special powers and could like fuck? They are literally just priests in name. There's no reason for like this to be about priests. It's a vampire hunter. It's, you know.
It's so funny to me that so very early on in the film, Peter Weller is introduced as a bishop who's like in contention to be the Pope. And then shortly after he leaves the film for the first time, you are introduced to the Black Pope who's wearing a mask. And it's so clearly Peter Weller from the moment he opens his mouth. And like then 2/3 of the way through the movie, they do like a big reveal like, oh, it was you, Cardinal. And it's like, really?
Also,
nobody?
In that, there's a whole thing of like, to find out where people are, you have to ask the ones who are being stoned or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like
the hanged man.
But like, so I was like, wait, Heath Ledger has to go down into these fucking catacombs where these like BDSM popes are hanging out to ask these men who are being beaten for directions. Yeah. They're the Google Maps of the order.
Google Maps of the whole Vatican.
It's such a misguided world building on this guy's
I was just
part.
gonna say the world building is bad. Like
it feels like such middle school boy fanfic fantasia. I was shocked at how ramshackle Holly Hobby the movie is.
Yeah, it's wild. And I was pretty sure I'd maybe seen this before, and I was like 5 minutes in, I was like, I have never seen this movie. So yeah, it opened number 6 at the box office, which by the way, like box office return doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I just think like, you know, Heath Ledger had already done The Patriot, 10 Things I Hate About You, Monsters Ball, A Knight's Tale. Like he was a name, and for this movie to come out in 2003 and for it not to open big, Yeah.
Big flop.
Big flop.
Big flop. Good pick, Gavin.
And he's real quick too, because I always try and make sure that I'm basing it off the performance as well. He sounds bored. He has to do so much voiceover narration, and let me tell you, he does not do bad voiceover narration. He does great voiceover narration in Ned Kelly. He does really good voiceover narration in Casanova. Like in the order, he's like, and then I discovered her dead body, and I took her sins. It's like, okay.
And now it is I have been blessed and cursed. For now I possess the keys to the kingdom of heaven. I will forgive those who deserve freedom. I will damn those who've damned themselves.
Oh,
yeah,
I can't care.
he doesn't know what's happening either, and
right,
so like,
exactly.
it's just like such a good pick, Gavin. That is definitely the bottom of the barrel for me too. My 1-star review, however, has to go to 2005's The Brothers Grimm.
I thought you might be saving this for this.
Yeah,
but you know,
so
it's not good. I don't want you to think I think it's good. Like, yeah,
this is just like of the era where, like, you know, I mean, Hollywood is obsessed with taking fairy tales and making them edgy and cool and like manly.
Well, and manly, yeah. I will say this: the Grimm fairy tales are pretty dark.
Yes,
but this movie's not really interested in the Grimm fairy tales either, because it wants to like that clip that you put on our Instagram, that like gingerbread man thing. None of it makes any sense. It's like a mud monster from a well that steals a child's face and then turns into a gingerbread man, and like
I don't think I've seen a more bizarre scene in this entire project called The Mixed Reviews. I was like, who was in charge here? What is the like world we're supposed to be in? Okay, so the whole thing about this film is that Will and Jake Grimm, famously their names, the brothers Grimm names, they're con artists, and they are using kind of like their knowledge of like the folklore and like these ancient towns to trick them into paying them to quote unquote exorcise the demons that are haunting the village, when in fact it's just like they're two cronies who are like pretending to be witches and ghouls and whatever. The government's like, actually there is a bad girly that we need you to get rid of. There's a plot about like a witch lady who wants to stay young forever, so she's stealing kids.
Yeah.
Which of course, because why would a woman be evil but only to stay young forever?
Played by Monica Bellucci, who is maybe one of the most beautiful women alive, but also was supposed to be Nicole Kidman, and she had to back out last minute.
Wow.
And like, kind of good for her, because it's a really thankless role.
Yeah. Oh my God, she's in it, but for minutes. Like,
right.
And most of it's just like youth, children.
Yeah.
Like it's just that.
Get him for me.
Matt Damon is like the older brother who like is the one who's like really into the con. Heath Ledger is like the younger one who's like really into writing and like, you know, knows the knowledge of the folklore.
He's the shy boy.
Yes. There is an interesting bit here, like not about the movie, but just like the production that. So apparently, fucking trigger warning, jump scare, fucking Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein apparently had a movie before this where Heath Ledger was going to be in called Calico, and it was a movie about football or some shit. He didn't like Heath Ledger or some shit, pulled the plug on it, and now here is this movie, and it's a Weinstein joint because now Heath Ledger is like this big star.
And they fucked with production quite a bit too. I mean,
yes.
Initially, I believe this is not me siding with Terry Gilliam, but Terry Gilliam really wanted Samantha Mathis to play the female lead, and the Weinsteins like gave them Lena Headey.
Mm-hmm.
It is Lena Headey, right?
Yes,
That's in it?
yes.
And so Terry Gilliam treated her like shit the entire time, which I don't think is correct.
No,
but
fuck
like,
off.
But like also, it's a shitty power play between men.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It's like women and you know, people without power fucking at the mercy of the horrible men who are just trying to like, measure their dicks against each other or whatever. So the movie was like really delayed, a lot of, fucking changes and this and that. It's just like the CGI is fucking crazy. This movie doesn't know what tone it wants to be.
The CGI is aged like milk.
Yeah. It's just a very, again, misguided kind of sci-fi wannabe adventure. I kept thinking like, if this was an actual like limited series on Sci-Fi, the channel, like it would be better than this because they are racing through all sorts of fairy tale nonsense, trying to cram in so much.
Like if each episode was like a monster of the week building to like a big bad played by a witch who was more fleshed out. Yeah.
Also, I was like, ABC did run 10,000 seasons of Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's that.
I will give it this. The thing that keeps it from my 1-star review, because once again, I also don't particularly care for this movie, is I do actually really like Heath's performance. I think he brings a lot of humanity to that, like, sort of shy, like, really wants to believe in something, and has been saddled with this, like, pompous, cynical brother who doesn't believe in anything, and he wants like there to be magic in the world, and of course when he gets it, it's horrifying, but that's he's about the love and the romance, and I just think his tiny little glasses are so cute.
Angelica, do what your father wanted. Leave the village now.
No, Will. I'm going to find my sisters.
Will doesn't care about them. Will doesn't care about anything but himself.
It isn't a fairy tale. They are not coming back.
This is not your world, Will! Angelica, you know, don't you? The story, it's happening to us now. We're living it. It's alive. It's real. It's breathing. And we can give it a happy ending.
5 stars for the glasses. I will give you that. Okay, are there any other films that we did not particularly like, Kevin?
I do think his performance is great in Monsters Ball. If I never have to watch Monsters Ball again, I did rewatch it for this, and I was like, why do I keep doing this to myself? And The Patriot. Yeah, The Patriot is, I did watch Pause for his 1 second scene, which is a movie we didn't even mention. It's an Australian children's film. But yeah, I think The Patriot's it, because I know this is not a popular opinion with you. I would watch Casanova again. I don't think it's good, but I would watch Casanova again.
There's a whole scene where like he's allegedly getting a blowjob at a table, and everyone's like, "Is the table moving? What's happening? It's so crazy."
And then a dog runs out.
This movie, that's exactly the type of joke that this movie is fueled on.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd watch Casanova again.
Life's short. I understand.
Yeah. I appreciate what they're trying for in Lords of Dogtown, but I wouldn't watch that again either.
I think this is my last time watching Lords of Dogtown.
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Okay, Gavin, let's get into our 5-star reviews.
I mean, I think I know what you're going to pick, but is there any other option than Brokeback Mountain?
Say that.
Is there truly? I mean, his portrayal of Ennis Del Mar, exactly what you were saying. He is a person who is he is a ball of rage, but it's all underneath the skin. And when he has those moments where he can be himself, when he's with Jack Twist, I mean, famously, the moment where him and Jack reunite and they kiss below the stairs and Michelle Williams catches them and then doesn't say anything, which, by the way, when I went to Wyoming, we did track down that house. I do have pictures of that house. And what was even funnier is it's me and Dan and our friend Andrea. We're taking pictures outside that house, and whoever lives there now like comes out and is like, do you want to come in and look around? We're like, absolutely not. No, thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, why did you say no?
Because that's a weird thing. Like, we're weirdos outside taking pictures of your house.
It is weird.
Don't invite us in.
Yeah, nice.
You're going to murder us, sir.
So you guys like that little queer movie, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just such a nuanced role, such a quiet role, and yet it's so all over everything. And the funny thing is I have not been kind about Jake Gyllenhaal's acting in the last decade, I want to say, because I find he has a tendency to go for really big, and for me, it doesn't work a lot of the times. And I do think, like, rewatching it this time, I was thinking about that. I was like, there are some places like he's laying it on a little thick, but I think because Heath Ledger is balancing out that so much with his like calm demeanor, that, you know, I think that's what makes that explosion. So famously, the end of the movie is Jack Twist dies in a gay bashing, essentially. And Ennis goes to Jack's parents' house, and he finds one of Jack Twist's shirts, and he hugs it and he cries. And yeah, it's a little cliche, sure. But I think that's what makes that explosive moment of emotion so much powerful, because it's him letting out the person that Jack Twist was for the first time, and really like trying to deal with his own emotions after have spent years hiding from himself. Yeah, it's a really beautiful movie. I get, like, you know, you can't please everybody. There are some people, like I said, who will be very much like, why would you pick the gay movie that's not really by gay people? Like, and then of course conservatives are going to be like, they should die because they're fags. Like, but and that is the language conservatives use, so don't come after me. We're reclaiming that word, by the way. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't have much more to say because it's not like a crazy expressive role. It's not like I can point out like too many, like, oh my God, but there are moments in there. There's such bright moments. I talked about the fireworks scene earlier too, where he's, like thinks he's like defending his manhood, but it's like he's terrifying the people around him. And yeah, I think it's a brilliant nuanced performance. And I truly love it. And like shows truly the power that he had. And I once again, I don't know how hard it is to learn a role based off nothing versus a role in which I do think he deserved the Academy Award for it. I'll say it,
Yeah. I think, it's, people can argue up and down forever about like who gets to play what roles. I think this piece of art is so good. It defies and elevates beyond those conversations, because how can you argue with what we have? Like with the piece of art we have, it's just, and in 2005, for someone as red hot in the industry as he was, to take that role, like it, and frankly, like, there was a lot of jokes at that movie's expense. There was a lot of discourse and conversation. The discourse in conversation was not about like, how dare he steal that role. It was like, okay, broke back mountain gays. Like, it was just, a lot of making fun of the movie.
And two things to add to that. One, the film being popular didn't stop that. And people to this day still joke about Brokeback Mountain. And two, what was my second thought about the discourse?
I think the main thing here is that there is so much power in this performance and in this movie that, like I said earlier, there sometimes art just like perseveres. And this is a performance that, to me at least, transcends all the discourse around like who should be in these roles or not. And sometimes like there are pieces of art that have to happen so we can continue that conversation, right? Because we wouldn't even be having the conversation of like who should be playing these roles if movies like this weren't made. I'm not here to fucking say Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal were brave. Fuck that.
Right.
What I'm saying is that like Ang Lee really fucking put together just a masterful piece of art that we are lucky to have. And I don't think we can understate the legacy of this film. Like, we continue to have really great pieces of queer art, and also, frankly, bad pieces of queer art. But
Yeah.
a lot of that is because this movie was able to find success. And I do think a large part of that is because of Heath Ledger, and who he was.
And that I do remember the second thing I was going to say. The second thing is you mentioned that like he taking this role, like, and you're right, brave is the wrong answer, but he did have something to prove, and he wanted to prove like how good of an actor he truly was. And I think, you know, 10s across the board, because this was the time, because it wasn't the fact that it was a gay guy, like for all, like, this is a huge gamble. This should have failed, in fact. And he played it seriously. He took it seriously, and he gives like maybe one of the best performances in the movie, in a film of good performances.
You and Lorraine, it's normal and all? Sure. If you don't ever suspect, you ever get the feeling, I don't know, when you're in town and someone looks at you, suspicious, like he knows, then you go out on the pavement and everyone's looking at you like they all know too?
Maybe you ought to get out of there, you know? Find yourself someplace different, maybe Texas.
Texas. Sure, maybe you can convince Alma to let you and Lorraine adopt the girls. And we can just live together herding sheep. And it'll rain money from L.D. Newsom, and whiskey will flow in the streams, Jack. That's real smart. Real smart.
You want to live your miserable fucking life, then go right ahead.
Fine.
I was just thinking out loud.
Yep, you're a real thinker there. God damn. That fucking twists.
Yeah, it's undeniable. Yeah, excellent pick, Kevin. I don't think that anyone could argue that that is perhaps his like shining crowning moment in his career. But I would be remiss if I didn't choose for my 5-star review 1999's 10 Things I Hate About You. I think it
called it.
I think it informs a lot of his career and his sensibilities. And I think, you know, as I was researching like his role and his approach to this was his first big movie. So much of what is in this movie and this character and the choices were him. It was the very famous sing of "You're Too Good to Be True," where he's singing to Kat in the stands. He chose that song. Originally, it was going to be some other fucking song, and he told the director, like, this isn't romantic enough.
I Think I Love You from the Partridge Family, which I don't think would have worked because that had literally just been in Scream 2. And I Touch Myself by the Divinals, which...
Yeah. Right. And he said, no, we're going to do this song. And like the scene of him running around and like being chased by the security guards, that was just all pure him. And I just think that's like a good example of like what he was bringing to the table. This movie also, you know, showcasing him as this mysterious hard surface guy with this interior. I forgot like how emotional it is, where we know that like both him and Julia Stiles' character, they have like people have these conceptions of who they are, right? And because they are so proud, they don't feel the need to correct anyone because fuck what people think. And there's like a really great part where her sister is like, no, she really does care, and you know, wanting someone to kind of like be able to confide in. And I will say there are some cliches in this movie. Like this movie definitely has the like, was I a bet type thing to you? Like, was I all a bet?
You know, I'll give this movie credit for that though. Like that usually happens like privately and is like a long drawn out thing. And in this, it happens it's very quick and sudden and public, and it's resolved very quickly too.
Yeah.
And I like when I was rewatching, I was like, what an economy of storytelling to just decide like, we've got 10 minutes, girls, let's wrap it up. Like,
yeah.
And I love that. I think it really works because it's not really about that, you know?
Right. And I will say like, this movie has real consequences. There's, you know, like there's so much emotion. The other very iconic scene is when Julia Stiles gives her poem. Heath Ledger kind of also felt like, so she says this long poem about how she hates that she doesn't hate him at all, and you know, she's crying up
not
there,
even a little bit,
not even at all,
not even at all.
And Heath was like, this is not about me, this scene is not about me, and we do not need the reaction of like, I'm crying too because she's crying. And he again is able to emote and be a generous scene partner and is giving an internal performance. And I just think, you know, it's a signal to me that at such a young age and so early in his career, he just understood how to be a good scene partner and how to really enhance a movie, right? Like, because he wasn't just kind of sitting back and like taking, you know, notes and
Right.
taking direction. He was actively part of this movie making, and all of his castmates to this day say like it was just like a fun summer camp. Everyone loved each other. They're having such a great time making this movie. And yeah, I mean, especially David Krumholtz. He's like, me, Heath, and Heath's best friend / assistant were just like cutting up the entire time, and they stayed really good friends. And later in life, David Krumholtz tried to help him, you know, get healthy and sober. He's able to give that like Cheshire grin, you know, but also the dangerous bad boy thing of it all. Yeah, I just love this movie very, very much. And I think Heath Ledger is one of the many pieces similar to Brokeback Mountain. Like all the pieces just fucking work.
Right.
And so I think these two movies kind of, not bookending, but like in very different parts of his career.
But in conversation with each other.
Yeah. And I think it's just, you know, I don't want to say just as important, but I think just as relevant to the success of his career and showcasing of his talents, because to be able to do something like this where it's so funny and charming, and then something like Brokeback Mountain, it's just like, my God, the range.
And it's interesting to, I guess, in the way that they're in conversation with his career too, because Jake Gyllenhaal, Anne Hathaway, and Heath Ledger were all like teen stars.
Mm-hmm.
And that really broke them out of it, all three of them.
Right.
And so like it also has that too, because 10 Things I Hate About You is sort of the career he could have had he. But once again, I think the reason 10 Things I Hate About You is successful and has lasted as long as it has is because it's not like the other teen comedies that came out. Like people love to talk about like She's All That like it's a movie they like, but no one really likes She's All That much.
I like She's All That, but it is no 10
Things I Hate. Yeah.
I mean, like She's All That is stuck in a moment in time.
Yeah.
This movie transcends the time, and a part of it is, you know, it's just a lot smarter, and it treats its characters with more respect. You know, they both have like very kind of cliche teen rom-com tropes going on. There's like the Shakespearean aspect to it. There's like a musical aspect to it, but the performances in this movie as well are just kind of like leaps and bounds ahead. Has a better point of view.
Yeah.
And it treats every single person in this movie kind of gets what's coming to them. Everyone kind of has either their redemption moment or their great fall moment, and everything feels earned. And yeah, even Heath at the end, he did fuck up and he has to pay for what he did. And there's like a great reconciliation. Everyone kind of like is able to have that great catharsis. So yeah, I love this movie.
It's very good.
I can't thank you enough for helping me sneak out of detention. Very cool.
No problem.
I thought for sure I was busted when I was climbing out that window, I tell you. So how did you keep him distracted?
I dazzled him with my wits.
So what's your excuse?
For
acting the way we did.
I don't like to do what people expect. Why should I live up to other people's expectations instead of my own?
So you disappointed from the start, and then you're covered, right?
Something like that.
Then you screwed up.
How?
You never disappointed me.
I do think that is maybe the other 5-star review. I think we're maybe going to get a little shit, maybe not from our listeners, but from like a casual person who stumbles upon this for not naming The Dark Knight as... I do think it's a 5-star review. Like, he's great in it. It's a great performance. I still stand by. I don't think they would have nominated him for the Academy Award had he not died. Not because he's not good and not because he doesn't deserve it. It's just not the type of thing the Academy nominates.
Yeah.
And you know...
I think it's in that same conversation of Brokeback Mountain, where it's like sometimes the art has to be made to change the conversation, and so like,
right, exactly.
And now there are more blockbuster type films that are very good. I'm not saying that they've never been good, but like The Dark Knight shifted the conversation for the Academy, and we'll never know if he was going to be nominated or not. It doesn't take away from that he made a iconic performance.
Absolutely.
And it is very, very good. Even though in some ways deeply our culture, but also not.
And a movie we didn't really spend too much time on, I would go to bat for the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. I think that's maybe the last good movie we're ever going to get out of Terry Gilliam. And I think Heath Ledger's performance, there's a really sad desperation to it, especially knowing that it's his final performance and seeing him play such a kind of awful human being in this movie. I think it's an interesting thing that like it ends up being his last screen performance. Like, but it's good and entertaining and yeah. And I would say people should see that. Is there anything else you saw that you think other people might be interested in?
I mean, I have a soft spot for Ned Kelly. I just thought, him and like these boys playing Robin Hood in Australia. I think it was pretty well done. It's fun, but also very emotional. It's very like fuck the police vibes, which I really appreciated. I was surprised. Sometimes I'll see a movie that I've never even heard of, had no idea what it's about, and I was deeply surprised by Ned Kelly. I think even though Monsters Ball is a very gruesome movie, I think his performance is very good.
Yeah, you can stop it after the 19-minute mark or whatever.
You really can. If you want to have like a silly Billy fun night, watch A Knight's Tale with like a group of friends.
Yeah, A Knight's Tale's too long, I will say. It definitely like feels the weight of its own length. So if you don't feel the need to watch all of The Knight's Tale, just go to YouTube and search like Knight's Tale Golden Years, so you can watch the dance sequence.
Yeah, the dance sequence is fun. I think like the jousting is fun.
Fun fact about the jousting, and you'll never look at it the same way again. In order to get that like splintering effect, it's like essentially like hollow wood filled with uncooked fettuccine noodles. Every time you see one of those break now, you will just see the fettuccine noodles flying. Yeah.
Spaghetti jousting? That's incredible. But again, like I think this kind of showcases like he was able to do anything, and that's kind of iconic and amazing. So okay, before we wrap up, let's do our mixed reviews review.
My 1-star review was 2003's The Order.
My 1-star review was 2005's The Brothers Grimm.
And my 5-star review was 2005's Brokeback Mountain.
My 5-star review is 1999's 10 Things I Hate About You.
All right, let's get into our fast forward. As we've said before many times, when we do a subject who has passed away, fast forward's a little moot. We did mention that Heath was heading towards a career in direction. He had done several music videos. He was thinking about the Queen's Gambit. He had already cast people in it. I think that would be really interesting. If, you know, all speculation, like if he were still alive today, we might be seeing our 4th or 5th Heath Ledger directed movie. It does take a long time to direct a movie, so maybe not that many, but and who knows how successful he would have been at it. There's truly no way to know, but he was just an endless font of energy that I can't imagine that he wouldn't at least make something interesting.
Yeah, or I mean, he was directing music videos and had a very hustling and bustling music. Is executive the right word? Kind of. He technically was like a career as a music executive. One kind of like interesting trivia bullet point is Bon Iver wrote a song titled Perth in memory of Heath, and that's because one of his friends, who was like the other executive with his company, was working with Bon Iver at the time when they found out he had died. And yeah, who knows? He was really like an artist, and like to the point, like watching the documentary about him, I was like, he kind of sounds a little bit like a douche. But I think that is not because of him. I think actually it's because of the fucking documentary and the way they frame him as this kind of like artsy fartsy kind of stuck up kind of guy. But the more I read about him and his and his interests and what he wanted to do, I think he just wanted all the outlets for this creativity. And he was not stuck up or proud about his work. He just never wanted to be bored. He never wanted to, and he didn't want to be like a hot commodity Hollywood star. He had zero interest in celebrity. He was just interested in the work, which I think is so admirable. And you know, we lost truly a great actor and artist, and who knows what we would have gotten outside, I mean, inside and outside of you know, Hollywood from him. Again, he died when he was only 28 years old, which is crazy to think, because even though this is like one of our shorter episodes as far as like the amount of films we watched, but again, like to have what is it, Gavin? Like maybe 10 films, and like 3 of them are significant entries into the American film canon. It's wild. It's very wild.
It is truly, and you know, it's tough when somebody burns so bright so fast and then is gone. But he did it so well. Like I don't know what else to say. Like
I mean, literally,
you know, his work speaks for him.
That was like 10 years from 1999 to 2009, essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially, what we got as like film goers was 10 years of him picking weird ass fucking roles, swinging for the fences every single time, and doing it his way, and like Hollywood noticing, right? And it's just wild. 10 years. What that's
nothing. That's
nothing.
That's a blip.
Yeah, a blip.
Yeah,
and within that, and there's a in one of those articles I was reading, he talks about how like we are nothing.
Yeah.
When I want to get out of my head, I go sit on Mars, and I think about how we're so limited and finite, and that's how he kind of like recentered himself, thought about himself, and thought about his work, and how, you know, this isn't serious. This man and the things he thought in his brain and mind, you know, we'll never completely know, but he clearly was operating on another level. And I wish we would have gotten more time. I wish he would have been able to get better, feel rested, you know, see his daughter grow up. And
his daughter, who's 18 now, was 2 at the time of his death. Like,
yeah, that fucking sucks, dude. And from what I understand, and also in this research, he loved being a dad. His life changed. His life changed, and he was very committed to her. And who knows what would have happened. This man ended his career and life doing like literally the Joker and like these kooky booky movies and that Bob Dylan movie. It's just who would have known what would have come next. I think young actors and like he will always be an icon that people can look to though for like inspiration, because my God,
Yeah.
who did it like him? Who?
Yeah, definitely an idol to pushing himself, or and trying new things and proving that he could do it as well.
Yeah, and that you don't have to come from money, that you don't have to go to all the fancy schools. It's that classic Hollywood thing of like, you either got it or you don't, and man, did he have it. Like he really had it. But okay, I guess that is a good place for us to wrap up. That is Heath Ledger.
Absolutely. If you have any extra thoughts or comments, you can always find us on Twitter at The Mixed Reviews.
We're on Facebook, just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to write us a longer form note, you can always email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
You can always find us on Instagram and our crazy little reels of me watching our movies at _mix_reviews.
And being gooped and gagged.
Gooped and gagged by little gingerbread people.
Or you can listen to our back catalog, much like you listened to this entire episode. You can find us on any major podcast app. We're on Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else you can find us. And always do remember that if you stop by, you can rate us a 5-star, leave us a little rating, review. We'll read it on the show. And it helps us tell your friends, retweet our stuff. Mm-hmm. Any little bit helps. It's good. It gets us out there. It gets our names out there.
Yes, thank you. I just want to be famous, okay? Please.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing this for.
This is what we're doing for, yeah.
The Mixed Reviews is a proud member of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. You can find more info about their other spate of shows that exists on glitterjaw.com.
A bevy, some might say.
Oh, yeah. A Beverly.
Beverly. You guys already know what we're going to be doing for our next episode. Miss Jodie Foster. It'll be our Pride episode. After that, I believe, is our 150th episode. So we have something special cooked up for that. And join us on Patreon. You guys can listen to our exclusive Gavin and Louie Go to the Movies episodes, and join us on the Discord. Until next time, have a good night. Bye.
Bye.